Hello YouTube, my name is Jason and this is Library. Today I'm going to teach you how to create annotations. Annotations are basically data about data. So let me go ahead and show you how to create an annotation, and then I'll show you how to implement an annotation. The first thing you need to do is come over here to your source file and then create a new annotation. And just click that and then go ahead and give it a name. I already have one created that I call Test Anno. So let's go ahead and go to that. And the way you create an annotation is similar to the way you create an interface. And we're going to go over interfaces in the next tutorial, but right now this is how you create an annotation. The only difference between the interface and the annotation is that it has this @ sign right here outside of the interface. And inside of an interface, you can only give it what is like a abstract method, and that basically means it has nothing inside of curly braces. So let's go ahead and do something like duck. No, let's do duck. Duck will do. I already had it, and you would end it with a semicolon. And that's how you would create an abstract method, whereas if I tried to create a normal method out of it, I'd get an error because this is an annotation and not a class. So that's basically what we'd do. And the next one we could do is something like int quack. Yeah, we'll do quack. And basically, oh, that's capitalized. And that's basic syntax of how you would create an annotation, and you can basically create as many of them as you want. The next thing you would do with annotation, something you need to know about annotations is, sure, there's a lot of stuff you can do with just comments alone, but in comment it doesn't actually spell check. But with the annotation, if I wanted to do tester anno and I misspelled it, it wouldn't find it. It has to be spelled correctly. And the reason you want to use a annotation over a comment is because you can actually use Java to you can use a search and find all of your annotations, whereas you can't do that. All your annotations of that name or that type and have them all come up on your screen. So basically the reason I'm getting an error with this annotation right now is because I haven't given it its parameters, which are, if I remember, duck, I think was one. Yeah, duck, and duck needed a string, so I'm just going to put whatever inside of here, and this, you would separate it by a comma, and then I would say quack, I think was the second one, and then some random number. I think I misspelled quack. Yeah, I spelled it differently. Let me delete these. So basically now the annotation is created and there's no problems with it. So that's the difference in an annotation and a comment. It's a little easier to find, and it actually does get processed whenever you're doing your coding. So let's say I go ahead and run this, and I came over to my bin file and I opened my beginner class. Whenever I start scrolling through, this is my class file. This isn't my .java file. So whenever you start scrolling through here, you can actually see your annotations. in here. Let's see if I can, like right here, tester anno. See, it actually shows it in your .class file. Whereas if we try to find that comment, you'd never find it because it doesn't get processed into it. So that's one of the things that is real different in annotations and in comments. And pretty much just to sum up the three things you can do, you can give information for the compiler with an annotation. You can also use it for runtime processing, and you can also do it for deployment time processing or compiler time processing. And those are the three things you can basically do with it. And runtime processing is basically some annotation for to be examined at runtime. And for compiler processing, it's basically it processes the annotation information to generate a code like XML and so forth. And just for information would basically be like this: the duck, and then like 354. That would basically just be some random information about the annotation or the method that it's being annotated on. So let's go ahead and delete that because we don't need the duck one anymore. And let's talk about some of the Java created annotations. And there's three types of Java created annotations. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the suppress warning annotation. And the suppress warning annotation is pretty neat in that it say I created a int dog and I made it equal to 35. But if you notice, it's never actually used. You can actually annotate this and do a suppress warning for the unused. And now dog no longer has that little yellow line under it because it's suppressing the warning and it's saying that it's unused, but we don't care because we don't want no error. So let's go ahead and take that off and run it. And we don't really get any error from that. But sometimes it usually will give you an error. But that's basically how you would use the suppress warning for an annotation. You have to use it for like the creation of an object. You can't use it for like a return object or something like a comment. But it comes in real handy. It's best not to use this on methods because if someone comes behind you and they write other code in here, like something just crazy or whatever, it'll actually suppress that warning as well, even if you don't want it to suppress that warning. So that's how you would set up a suppress warning. Make sure you use it on a lower level part of the code, such as just like a declaration. Like so. The next one I'm going to go over is the deprecated. A deprecated is basically, say we created another method and we called it public void dog. No, not dog. We already have a dog. Lucky. We'll call it Lucky. And we'll give it no parameters because you know we just put our code right in here. So if you wanted to deprecate this, all you'd have to do is do the @ and put deprecated inside of it, and it'll deprecate this, meaning that it's no longer used. And that's how you would use a deprecated annotation. The next thing, I'm going to go ahead and undeprecate this because we're going to go ahead and use it again. So let's come down here and let's go ahead and create a new class. And I'm going to go over the override method. And let's call this class public static we'll call it monster. And public static class monster, and it's going to extend beginner. And inside this class, we're going to recreate the public void lucky method. And if you notice, we're getting this little error, not error, but this little warning right here. And what it's saying is that you're overriding this right here. So if you want to truly override it, you just come over here and do the add missing override, and add override will take that little warning away. And it also allows Java to know that this is supposed to be overridden, just in case you misspelled this and you had to override. Now you get an error right here because it's saying this isn't overriding anything. Whatever you wanted to override, you misspelled it or you misspelled this, and you need to go check it. And that's basically one of the good reasons to have that override annotation, because it gives you that little data about your data. If that's more understandable now, it tells you that little bit of data difference. So that's pretty much all I'm going to go over in annotations today. I'm just going to go ahead and give you a brief rundown on it. Remember that an annotation is written out like an interface, public interface, but it has this @ symbol right here. And then you have to create these abstract methods inside of the annotation. And you can't give these methods any type of parameter, or else you'll get like an error, because they can't hold parameters. Instead, they are defined whenever you come over here and you call them. So, and also one more thing I wanted to talk about, there is a string value method that you can create, and that's automatically created whenever you create the annotation. So this is just the default value for it. So if we took all that off, we'd still have that values right there. And by putting this right here, it tells the annotation that it must be there. But that is one of the things about annotations. So this is how you create an annotation, and this is how you give it its values. And then basically this is how you summon the annotation, and this is, you basically put its little values, them little methods right here, and the values of the methods inside of these parentheses. So that's all I'm going over in annotations. Thank you for watching. My name is Jason. This is Lineware. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and have a great day.